All right. Welcome to the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today we have someone who's not just crushing it in digital marketing, but reshaping the way agencies build trust, scale operations, and master paid social. He's the founder of Heath Media and a personal brand powerhouse on YouTube, BenHeath. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. That's quite the intro. That's very nice of you to say. I'll try and live up to the billing there.
Yeah, so let's try with your early hustles and agency genesis. Now, your journey before Heath Media is full of trials, from app developer to network marketing. What clicked differently at 23?
Yeah, it's a good point because I had 6 years before that of things not working. I think the biggest change that happened for me was not trying to do it all in 3 or 4 months. I think before that, I'd been trying to pick the lock to success instead of just laying the right foundations and doing the right things. I've been trying to sell all sorts of products, like you said, network marketing, just jumping on different things, different trends, trying to get them to work. And basically no one ever achieves a lot in a 3 to 6 month time period. And I think when I finally got to the point with starting my marketing agency, I had run ad campaigns for my mum's business as a trial, but for 18 months, 2-year trial to really make sure I knew what I was doing. And I could see that the progress I had made on that over that length of time. And I remember thinking at the time, right, I'm not trying to conquer the world in 6 months. I'm going to be much more realistic. I'm going to lay good foundations. I'm going to do good work for clients. I'm going to do things properly. I'm going to work really cheaply at the beginning so that I can get testimonials and reviews that I can then use to talk about and get more customers. And taking a longer term approach. Alex Hormozi is brilliant at talking about this. He says, if you're trying to build the tallest building you can build in an afternoon, you're going to build that very, very differently than if you've got a month to build it, and you're going to build it differently still if you've got 5 years to build it. And I think that finally 6 years of failed attempts, that message finally sunk in. Right, I need to do this properly.
Okay, now, I also came across that there were 3 years of making zero revenue when you were at that stage. And how did you mentally survive and not pivot away for those 3 years?
Yeah, so when I first started my agency, 3 years. So it wasn't 3 years of no revenue, but definitely 3 years of no profit.
Okay.
So I had, a bit of client work that could generate a bit of money. Well, for me, I think I had no alternative, really. I had dropped out of a very good university. I didn't have a degree. And I did that at the time, knowing that that was my version of burning the boats. You have to take the island if you burn the boats. There's no alternative. So I knew I couldn't go and get the sort of job that all my friends were getting. I had to find a way to make it work. So I worked full time alongside those first few years where I didn't make any profit and couldn't pay the bills. And I'm actually really glad I was in that situation, because I think had I had the option of the easy out to go and get the good job, to join a graduate scheme like all my friends were doing at the time, I might have taken it. But that kept me going, and very glad that it did. It worked out in the end, but it was definitely hard. I naturally, as a person, have quite a lot of perseverance. I was always into sports as a kid, was always wanting, yourself, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And I know that when I was playing football with my friends, I was willing to run longer than everyone else. Just always, since I could remember, that was part of my personality. And that absolutely helped when it came to those early days of running my business, of constantly thinking, okay, I've tried this hasn't worked. Tried this hasn't worked. Oh, how can I get this to work? This thing has worked a little bit. So I was constantly assessing and looking to improve things. And I don't think that you need to see a lot of success for that to really help mentally for you to keep going. What I think you need to see is progress. So I say that to my team all the time. Like, recently, I've just started a new TikTok account, haven't really done anything on that platform before. And I'm working with my team on that. It's very new. And the new follower numbers, the view numbers that we're getting there in comparison to other platforms are tiny. It seems, you might say, what's the point in doing this? But as long as I can see progress, as long as I can see that our follower numbers are going in the right direction, view numbers are going in the right direction, I know that compounded over time, that will get somewhere important. So even in those early days, if I went from generating £1,000 a month in client work to £1,200 a month in client work, wasn't going to pay the bills, but it was progress. And I could extrapolate from that and go, okay, if we keep going here, this is going to become something.
Okay, yeah, that's a good take. Now, what role did failure in early ventures play in building the grit needed for Heath Media? Of course, you mentioned you already had the grit, but did these failures build more?
I'm not sure they did, actually, honestly. I don't think I became more resilient from failing. I think I had a desperation is a strong word, but it's probably accurate. A desperation to achieve some level of success and make something. I'd made this big gamble. I decided I didn't want to go work in the business world, in the corporate world. I wanted my own business, dropped out of a very good university. And I felt like I had so much sunk cost. I was going to keep going and try and make it work no matter what. What it did teach me was more on the strategic level of what does and doesn't work. And anything that looks like a shortcut almost certainly doesn't work. That was one of my big takeaways from early failures. I mean, the whole reason why I got into marketing in the first place was because I was trying to sell my own products to people with these various little side ventures. And funnily enough, no one was going to buy if I didn't market them. So I had to learn marketing and educate myself, and then found I developed a skill through that I could then sell to other people. So I think going through that, I picked up a lot of strategic understanding, just experience that was really beneficial later on, as opposed to necessarily adding extra grit. I think I had that anyway.
All right. Now, you have scaled from a solo venture to a 50+ person team. So what were the pivotal decisions or strategies that unlocked this rapid growth?
So for me, it was keeping the most important thing, the thing that I spent my most time on. So I think a lot of, particularly in the agency world, because agencies are very busy, they're very chaotic, they're very time consuming. It's easy for people to work on the urgent and not the most important. So relatively early on, I knew that building my personal brand for the overall success of the business was the most important thing. Because if I had enough of a following, if I delivered enough value to people in this marketplace, if I made a name for myself, I would have enough demand coming in from clients that I would then be able to use that demand, use that revenue to solve other problems my business had. So use the revenue to be able to hire great people to deliver a fantastic service and all those sorts of things. So it'd been very easy when things got incredibly busy and I was trying to make content, and I was also doing the sales calls, and I was also doing the client deliverables, and I was also doing my bookkeeping, and people in this world are very familiar. You're doing all the roles, and you might have one VA, for example, to help out, but you're doing all the roles. It would have been very easy at that point to drop the content and just go, I've already got loads of clients, I don't need this. And I knew at the time that the people who were at the top of this space, who were where I wanted to get to, they all had substantial personal brands. So I knew I had to always keep going with that. So I would make sure that my most productive hours of the day was content creation, and then I would fit in the client work later on in the evenings, let's say weekends, make sure I always got it done. I wanted to do a good job for my clients. And then once I had that revenue coming, once I had enough sales coming in, I was then able to afford to hire great people. In the end, I ended up partnering with someone I wouldn't have been able to partner with of a level if I hadn't had the personal brand and wasn't able to bring the lead flow to the table. So that was one of the most important things that I did was that. And then, speaking of other important things, that was another decision there, was recognizing what my core strengths are and what I'm weak at. So I'm good at building a personal brand. I'm good at content. I'm good at creating ads and running ads. That's how I generated most of my initial clients. That's how we got good results for clients. But I'm not a natural operator. So I find it difficult to manage large groups of people. My small content team, fine. It's something I know I can get better at. But I've partnered with someone, so I have a business partner who's a brilliant operator. So he manages the team that handles all the client deliverables. He manages the sales team, all of that, and allows me to focus on what I'm best at, which is content creation, building a personal brand, creating ads for my own stuff to grow the brand and grow the business.
Okay. Now, many agency owners struggle to break out of the freelancer phase. What advice would you give someone stuck at that stage?
So you have to find a way to stand out from the crowd. And that sounds like advice everyone's heard before. And I'm sure many people go, whatever, roll their eyes and move on. But it is true. In the marketing world, in the agency world, there are hundreds of thousands. If you're a freelancer in this space, there are hundreds of thousands of people just like you. So you have to find a way to differentiate yourself from the competition. So I did that with a personal brand, and that is absolutely a very effective way. It will take 5+ years to fully do that and to build a name. These things are difficult to build. They are incredibly valuable once you've built them. That's actually one of the upsides of something being difficult to do, is that if it's hard to do, other people won't do it. It protects you. I speak to people all the time at, say, marketing conferences who will say, I'm making content, I want to build a personal brand like yours. And my response is always like, great, I'll see you in 7 years' time. And then I know that the vast majority of people won't follow through with that. The few that do will go on to become names and have a lot of success. So that's one way to do it, is to differentiate that way. There are other ways. Can you differentiate yourself by establishing incredible relationships with a certain key referral partners? I know of agency owners that have succeeded that way. So they have approached much larger agencies and done very favorable to that larger agency deals, where anything that comes through to them that's too small, this business will then handle. And that produces a ton of lead flow, ton of workflow. That's difficult to do. There's lots of people that want to fill those roles, that want to build those relationships, that want to have those connections, but that can work really well. I've seen it with other types of referral partners, not just bigger agencies, but perhaps tangential businesses that are related to whatever it is their core thing is. So that could be another way of doing it. Another way is to operate in a really, really specific niche so that you can become the name in that space. That does cap you in terms of scalability at some point, but to get out of that freelancer role, that's absolutely a way to go. So you could specialize in something very specific. All your marketing, your website, your branding, your socials, everything is geared up for it. Take my example, like we run Facebook ads, but it's for dog walkers, and that's it. Just operate in that very specific, quite small niche. And then that makes it much easier for you to be referred, for you to acquire customers because of your specificity. And then once you've gotten to the point, because even in that space, you could still have a medium-sized business that's very successful, delivers fantastic lifestyle, gets you out of that freelancer role. Then you could look to expand out into other verticals. But that would be another way to really differentiate. But you have to find just this, I'm another one of these, I do good work, so does 100,000 other people.
Right. I can completely vouch for you. I've been in this space for last 23 years now. So, so initially it was difficult, but at least in India, I created a personal brand, and I still keep on in, especially when it comes to the SEO part. I did a lot, and yeah, I agree. It's not that easy. It's constant visibility, and it's constantly. It requires dedication, and it requires constant efforts. I agree.
It does, but the leverage you get on that can massively outweigh the effort.
Right.
Eventually. Not at the beginning, not at all, not for a long time, but eventually it can be massive leverage. So I can make a video now and we might get 50 leads from that one video. And that seems like an amazing return on the effort, return on the cost, but it took almost a decade of audience building to be in that situation.
Right. Now, how did you attract and retain world-class talent as your agency grew?
Yeah, so this is something that's a challenge that my business faced because of where we're located. So we're based in the UK. We're not in London. We're not in Manchester. We're not in one of the major hubs where you would be able to find existing talent. So we're based in the west of England. We sort of have 2 offices, and rural-ish, not massive population centers, not hubs for marketing or agency talent. So we've managed to attract a few people that already had skills. When you're one of the only big players in that area, when it comes to marketing agency wise, that becomes easier. But we have really struggled to attract world-class talent. So what we've done instead is we've hired people with fantastic attitudes, amazing work ethic, and we've trained from ground up. That takes a lot longer, and it's much more difficult to do from a planning standpoint, because if it's going to take you 6 to 12 months to get someone ready to even start working on a client ad account alongside, say, a more senior media buyer, well, that takes 6 to 12 months. It's really difficult to predict exactly what your demand will be in that time period. So you kind of have to make a leap of faith of, right, we're going to onboard another 4 people now. We know they'll be useful in 9 months' time, and they'll be fully ready to go on client ad accounts in 18 months' time. These are long time periods for them to develop the experience and expertise to be able to deliver great results. But that's something you have to do. And because my personal brands continue to grow, we've had the demand to justify that. But that is difficult to do. One of the big plus sides to that is that your talent is initially cheaper because they come in not experienced. So they don't command the same price as someone who's been doing this for 7-8 years. So that helps from a cash flow standpoint, from a cost standpoint early on during that process. And also because of where we are, and almost all of our staff have hybrid contracts. So they work partly in the office, partly remotely. So they need to be somewhat nearby. Not all of them, but the vast majority are under that. It means that retaining that talent is also easier, because if we were based in London, it would be far easier for them to jump across to another big agency based on the experience that they've got with us. That's more difficult for our staff to do. So it's kind of like the same logic of building a personal brand. It's been more difficult for us to find talent because of where we are, but actually easier to retain and can work out really well over the long run.
Right now, what's one mistake you see most agency founders making when they are trying to scale?
I think agency founders, and this is true for lots of different business owners I see, but definitely true in the agency space, is they spread themselves too thin and they try and do too many different things. They try and offer too many different services, some of which they may not actually have enough expertise in. That creates a really difficult business operationally, because you or your team need to know a bit of this and a bit of that, and you don't get those efficiencies from people doing the same thing or very similar things again and again and again and getting really, really good at it. And it also makes it more difficult from a marketing standpoint, because if you are a specialist in something, you can plaster that all over your website, all over your socials, and people understand exactly what it is that they're getting. So my agency, we specialize in meta ads and Google ads, and that's what we do for clients. Now, some existing clients, we might add on some auxiliary services, but we don't market ourselves as anything else. We have meta ads and we do Google ads very specifically. So that helps operationally. It also helps from a marketing standpoint. So I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see very often. They will, and then you can apply that to many different places. So you can apply that logic not just to services provided, but the marketing activities that an agency will engage in. So a lot of agency owners, and I did this at the beginning, they will try a little bit of everything. Oh, I'm going to do a bit of networking. I'm going to do a bit of content. I'm going to run my own ads. I'm going to do all sorts of different things, try and get a few referral partners. But there's almost certainly going to be one of those that produces much better results than the others for your business. So just cut the others, even if they are generating clients, and rededicate all those resources, that time, effort, and money to that thing that's working best. Keep putting more and more into that. Let that compound, get better at it. I think you'll be in a much better situation.
All right. Now, in your experience, how has the agency landscape changed in the last couple of years, especially with the rise of AI and automation?
Yes, it's interesting. So 5 years ago, there'd be lots of people selling online, start a marketing agency. So people selling courses, that idea in content. Start a marketing agency was always the terminology. And now it's not, it's an AI agency, even though these businesses, from the look of it, do very similar things that are designed to do very similar things. I think there is a large opportunity for people in this space to take advantage of the fact that they know or can learn how to use AI to automate tasks, to get things done really quickly, that regular business owners that would benefit from the service don't know. So a classic example might be let's say someone is trying to build a following on LinkedIn, a B2B business, they want to following on LinkedIn. So that business owner is writing all sorts of posts and putting out content and things like that. If you're in this space, it sounds silly that someone wouldn't be using ChatGPT or an equivalent to write those posts and do it a lot faster. But there'll be lots and lots of people that are doing that themselves manually. They're just not really familiar with it or comfortable with it. Now, that might be taking that person hours every week, and that's a service that someone else who understands how to use these things could automate for them, probably with 20, 30 minutes a week, put a little bit of input into these posts, but allow AI to do the heavy lifting. So there's quite a value exchange there where you're going to save this business owners hours every week. You're going to probably deliver better results because good chance that something like ChatGPT will write better posts than they will. So they get better results as well. And there's a value exchange there. So that has been going on for a while. I think that's going to continue. I do think that businesses want to be careful branding themselves as an AI agency, because if I think about that from the customer's point of view, most businesses won't think they need an AI agency. They're like, what for? Right. What do I need this AI for? Whereas if you brand yourself as something else, but use AI, you can make yourself much more efficient operationally, get a lot more done, but you're making it clear to the customer that you're getting them what they want. So for example, we're an email marketing agency. Now you can use AI to write most of the emails and do most of that stuff. But if you brand yourself as an email marketing agency, a business can go, great, that's exactly what we need. We have an email list. We want to build an email list. We want to get more sales from it. We feel like we should be doing more from it. That's exactly who we want to work with. So that's how I think people can position themselves a little bit cleverer from thinking about it from the customer's point of view, the potential client's point of view, and use that. I think that AI, any improvements in technology, they make workflows more efficient. That allows more to be done.
Right.
But only if you know how to use it. So I think the people who are going to really benefit from that most are people like myself. It's agency owners. We can get more done now with one copywriter who's properly using AI for ads for clients than we could 7 or 8 years ago with 3 or 4. So that's a massive cost saving for us as a business. I mean, we've expanded, so we haven't downsized, but I think that will be happening in the agency space a lot. We haven't had to do that because we've kept expanding, kept getting more clients. But it means we haven't had to hire as many extra people as what we otherwise would. But yeah, I think the expertise that agencies can provide, not just AI related, but also wrapping that up in a whole marketing bundle, is still really valuable to clients. So I see very few scenarios where potential clients or clients are going, we're not going to use our marketing agency anymore. We're going to just use AI ourselves. That I haven't come across. And I think there's some fear of that within the marketing space because I think there's a knowledge gap there, but it does mean that agencies are more efficient and can get more done. One knock-on effect of that might be that agencies start dropping their prices because they can get more done, so they can offer it for less, and that can create a bit of a race to the bottom price-wise. So we might see that average monthly fees coming down. But at the end of the day, if you can generate leads, you can generate sales for businesses, that is an incredibly valuable thing. It's one of the most valuable things you can ever provide a business, is that ability. So people are always going to be willing to pay for that, even if it is more than they would like to.
Right. Now, let's talk about a little bit more about the power of personal brand. Now, you said in a previous talk that 26 was the year you went all in your personal brand. Now, what made you pull that trigger?
So one of the ways I was experimenting with generating clients for my own agency initially was I was creating videos to run as Facebook ads to get Facebook ads clients. And they kind of worked. The videos weren't that good looking back now. This is 7 years ago or so. They kind of worked. But what I also did was I had these video assets and I thought, why don't I pop these up on YouTube? Because I already have them. How can that hurt? And I remember one of them got a couple hundred views and it got, say, 3 leads from it, and like properly interested businesses. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought, okay, I've got 200 views and 3 leads. I think I maybe closed one and ended up doing some work for one. So I had a look at what do the most popular videos on YouTube get view-wise in the Facebook ad space. At the time, it was about 40,000. And I remember I barely slept that night when I was running through the numbers thinking, okay, if I've got 3 leads of 200 views, I'm going to get 1,000 leads off a 40,000 view video, or hundreds of leads at least. And I felt like I had enough evidence just from that to extrapolate and go, if I can get my views to anything close to those numbers, I'll have all the leads I ever want. So then I worked on, okay, take a look at the best performing videos for each sort of subtopic within the Facebook ads world is where I started creating content. I think this video did this well, this video did this different thing well, none of the videos have mentioned this other thing that I think is important. Let's combine them all, and I'm going to create my own version and do my best and try and get better and better. And it takes a long time to do that, to develop the skills and then build up that view count, that subscriber count, to the point where you do get massive views. And the ratios didn't exactly apply. It's not like I get 3 leads for every 200 views that I generate now. They certainly drop off as you achieve larger scale. But the basic logic of, if I get videos with these sorts of view numbers, will it generate more leads than I can handle? Absolutely, that was true. And actually, the space grew a lot. So whereas the most popular Facebook ads related YouTube videos got 40,000 views, then now I've got videos with more than 500,000 views. Like, the capacity expanded. And then since then, I just kept doing it. And then it kept doing it. And whilst other people who were creating content in that space went off and did different things, I just kept at it. And then all of a sudden, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I've got the largest YouTube channel related to Facebook and Instagram ads in the world. And then it just keeps going. And then it's the largest by 2 or 3 times. And you establish, it's like, I was just head down, focused on that. And all of a sudden I just pop my head up and be like, oh, I think I might have the biggest personal brand in the Facebook ad space. Like, this is crazy. And then now I work directly with Meta. I'm one of their Megaphone partners, with basically like a brand ambassador for Meta ads, because they see that and they reach out and they want to, give me special access and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can't exactly remember what your original question was, but that's doubling down on going all on a personal brand. That was the story. I had just enough of an indication that this could work. And I also looked at, I think this is a really important thing, look at the people who are where you want to be in 3 to 5 years' time. What are they doing? Not necessarily what are they saying, because I think sometimes in the online content world, you need to be a little bit careful about that. But what are they doing? Okay, they're doing this and they're doing that. And in my case, it was, they're making YouTube videos. And then since then, there's been a lot more. At the time then, that was the place to make content. Now, all of us make content on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn and everywhere, right? But then it was very much YouTube specific. So it was those 2 things really, an early indication from a trial. That's why it's always important to test things. And then looking at the people that were where I wanted to get to.
So still YouTube is your number 1 channel still? I mean, despite having all these different channels?
Yeah, YouTube's my largest social following. So I've got 2 channels. I've got one for Facebook ads and one for Google ads. So I've got across the 2 something like 430,000 subscribers, with the majority, like 360,000 of those being the Facebook ads channel. And I've got just over 1 million followers, subscribers across all socials. But YouTube's going to be most important, with Facebook being next, and then it goes on and on.
And you still put your most effort, obviously, in YouTube itself only.
Yeah, that's where most of my content creation time goes. We then repurpose clips from it for the other socials. A lot of my other social stuff, we'll take clips from if I'm talking at a marketing conference. We'll take clips from a podcast like this, and we'll repurpose a lot more. Whereas YouTube is going to be more purpose recorded. Right. So yeah.
Okay. Now, so how do you balance building a personal brand with building your agency's brand? Any conflict or synergies?
No, I don't feel like there's any conflict. We haven't really done anything to build my agency's brand in and of itself. It's very much just been, we've built my personal brand, and then I say, this is my agency. So I can guarantee that amongst my following, far more people know my name than my agency's name. Now, it's got my agency's called Heath Media. That's part of the reason why we called it that, was to put my surname in there. And there are some downsides to doing that. So my business, because it's so focused around my personal brand in terms of the lead flow, the deliverables not. We have a team we've just crossed 60 people actually to be able to deliver. But the lead flow is very much around my personal brand. It would make selling my agency very difficult. I'd probably have some sort of onerous earnout where I'd have to make content for 5 years, that sort of thing. So that's a huge potential downside.
Exit can be a challenge.
Exactly. But I think on the plus side, if I had to do it all again, I would still go personal brand first, is because people connect with other people so much better than they connect with a brand name. And having that connection is where all the value of the personal brand is in. It's in the trust. It's in this guy gives me value. I trust him. I trust that he will have made sure that his agency is going to do good work for my business because I've watched him for many videos. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. He's demonstrated loads of evidence that they get good results for their clients. Like, this is who I'm going to trust what is in a lot of cases businesses we work with but one of the most important things to their business. They're going to entrust that to us is their customer acquisition. So even though that has those downsides, I'd still do it again. And I also think that despite the downside of it being very difficult to sell, if we make it big enough, that becomes less of an issue. So a great example of that would be Gary Vaynerchuk with Vayner Media. That's absolutely wrapped up in his personal brand. It was built off the back of his personal brand in the first place, but I'm pretty sure he could sell that business and not have any issues. And you could go outside the marketing world. Like, Elon Musk can be able to sell Tesla, even though the two are linked. So yeah, it's not something that worries me, but I do recognize that there are definitely downsides, and not at my level because I'm just not famous enough. But I know people that have taken that step from where I am to say 10x the following. And then that starts to present some challenges in their regular life. People know them, people lose privacy, try and go out for dinner, people are wanting photos. I get that at a marketing conference and a marketing conference only. It's really quite nice. It's like I get to be a celebrity for like 2 or 3 days. Marketing conference, just go home to my regular anonymous life and go about in the world. And I get stopped in the regular world maybe once a month, maybe. And so that's not something that negatively affects me, but build a personal brand big enough. We talked about Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure he has. I think he's perfectly happy with it. But someone in that scenario, he probably finds it quite hard to walk down busy streets in many places because he's going to have lots of people that want to follow him. So that's another potential downside if you get big enough.
Now, how many hours on an average you spend per week on creating YouTube content?
YouTube content's probably going to be about 20 hours a week, I would say. So probably close to half my working hours can be spent on YouTube content. Probably another 10 hours a week on specific other content, and then probably 10 hours a week on the other things that just have to get done because they have to get done, whether it's communicating with team members and being involved in hiring decisions. I have a fantastic business partner that very much keeps me out of the operations, like I already discussed, so I can focus on this stuff a lot more. It used to be that when I was doing everything, my YouTube content was 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon, and I would just, I've got 2 hours, I've got to think up a video and go. And then that was it. And then send it off to an editor who wasn't great, but was cheap, and they edited it, and I could put it out. But now it takes up a lot more time and focus. So I plan videos meticulously. I verify, I go through each edit from editors very closely. I identify bits that could be clipped up for shorts. I think about titles. I think about thumbnail options. It's the main thing for me. So I'm very conscious to keep the main thing the main thing.
Okay. Now, any advice for agency owners who feel they are too late to build a personal brand in 2025?
Yeah, that's just not a concern. Like, just ditch that. If I go back to when I started building a personal brand, there was less competition, but there was also far smaller audience size. So like I said, the max you could get on a Facebook ads video then was about 40,000 views. Well, I've got videos with 500,000-600,000. So it's the potential size of the viewership has increased at least 10 times since then.
Right.
I don't think the level of competition has increased 10 times. It has increased, but not by 10 times. There's always going to be place for new personal brands to establish themselves. They might need to have a little bit of different take. They might, in most cases, just need to do better things than the competition. I think one of the best examples of this possible in recent times has been Alex Hormozi, who I've already mentioned. Almost no one knew who he was 2, definitely 3 years ago. And now he's one of the biggest names within the business space in the world that quickly.
Right.
So if someone like that can go from a relatively small YouTube channel with not many subscribers to, I was going to say millions, he might even be 10 plus million followers across channels now. In fact, I'm pretty sure he will be in just, let's say 3 years. I think it's closer to 2, but let's say 3 years. There's absolutely space for someone to go and get 50,000 followers on a platform, because that's probably all an agency owner needs to build a successful business is, well, 50,000 would likely be a very successful business. You can get 5,000 on a platform. You could probably make a decent living from the people that come through that, particularly if what you talk about is quite specific and you serve that specific audience. So yeah, that's just not something to be concerned about. It can absolutely be done.
Okay. Now, what's the biggest misconception people have about personal branding in the agency space?
So I think 2 come to mind. The first is going to be how long it takes. So I think because most people consume a lot of content and they see content creators that come from nowhere to have large followings quite quickly, they assume that that's possible in the agency space. And it rarely is. The content creators that have that really explosive fast growth tend to be entertaining content creators. And because your potential audience size is much larger and the content is just much more consumable, it's much easier for people to sort of binge on entertainment related content, that they assume that that's possible in agency space. It's not. You're going to be producing educational content. There's only a relatively small percentage of the population that's interested in that. And then of those, a lot of educational stuff is like, it requires thought, it requires effort. It's not sort of thing you're going to stick on in the background whilst you're doing something else most of the time. You're going to have to concentrate. So that massively reduces the potential audience size. Now, it's a very valuable audience. Like my audience commands really high CPMs in YouTube ads in comparison to the average, because it's a really valuable audience. And then that's reflected in what we can generate revenue wise from the audience ourselves with our own services, what I can command from sponsors. So like all the values there, but it reduces the audience size. So that's the first one, is just to be like, this takes time. It is hard to do. You just have to accept that. It's hard to do because you need to develop the skill set. It's also hard to do because you sort of build trust with your audience one person at a time, and it grows and expands from there. The other thing that I think is a massive misconception, it's probably even more important, is people assuming they need to go broad with what they talk about in order to build a personal brand that can confer clients for their business, that can lead to success in that realm. And that is absolutely not true. In fact, I would recommend the complete opposite, because if you're creating broad business marketing related content, you are competing against the Alex Hormozes and the Gary Vaynerchuks, and like, good luck. That's really, really hard to do. So me, I'm broad within Facebook ads and within Google ads. But if I try and take that step, and that's something I'm trying to do, to go broader on some of my social channels, it's really hard. Like I get way less traction. It's like, wow, this is a whole nother league up. So if you think about that league being like the top league, and then underneath that, you've got someone like me who's broad within a domain. So you can have people that are broad within SEO, broad within Facebook ads, broad within whatever, different places. And then most people I wouldn't even recommend that. That's far too broad for most people to start with. You want to go at least one level lower than that, where it's like, right, we do LinkedIn and we do it for B2B businesses that operate in recruitment. Like that's what we do. So all your content is about how recruitment-based businesses can get more leads using LinkedIn, can grow their following on LinkedIn. Like that's the level of specificity you want to start at. And when you do that, your content gets 85 views initially. It gets 12 views. It gets 160 views. It grows. You're not going to have content with 100,000 views. It's very, very unlikely to happen. But what you'll find is you'll be in that scenario where I first started, where you go, wow, this video got 160 views and we got 2 leads from it. And you know what? Each one of our customers is worth $10,000. So a lead is worth a lot of money. This is, even though the numbers look really small, this is really viable for our business. So absolutely start specific. You can always broaden out later on. That's something that I'm trying to do now. I feel I'm like the biggest personal brand within the meta ad space. I'm trying to broaden out into broader marketing. It's really, really hard for me to do. And I've been doing this nearly a decade. Like I have a lot of skills. So someone getting started, go really small and just dominate that little space, hoover up so much of the business that's available from that. And then once you've got to that level, you can hire other people to help you and take that next level if you want to expand. But there's lots of businesses that are really happy with their 12,000 person following that generates a couple $1 million a year business. That's absolutely feasible.
Right. So do you use AI for generating ideas, or how do you get more content ideas for your YouTube videos?
So there's a few different ways. I'll look at comments. I'll look at what people say they want. That's often a great way, particularly if something comes up again and again. People are like, oh, what about this? What about this? Okay, great. I'll make a video looking at that. So I spend every day, I'll spend a few minutes flicking through the comments to get a sense for that. I will take a look at what competitors are doing, other people that make content in my space. Okay, oh, someone's made a video on that. I've not made a video on that yet. I think I could have my own take on this. I think I could do something similar. That video did better than average for their stuff. So there's some of that as well. In my space, and actually, to be honest, any agency related space, things are changing all the time. So there's a lot of news based videos that I create. There's new features. It's one of the big advantages I have being a Meta Megaphone partner is Meta will tell me in advance, we're going to do this, we're going to release this feature. They'll give me a product demonstration so I can see exactly how it's going to work, and I can have a video ready to go on announcement. So that's a big video topic. A big source of videos for me is just things changing, updating. And then for me as well, there are just redos of previous videos because everything changes. So I will do a big beginner's tutorial every year, and I need to do it every year. Honestly, I could probably do it every 6 months, because between the last time I did it and this time, okay, that's changed and that's changed and that's changed. Right. So that creates a lot of content. So I never really run out of ideas. It's one of the things that I think people assume would be a problem, would be ideas, and that's not the case. I've normally got more ideas than I have slots to record and edit. So yeah, from those sources, I get plenty.
Okay. Now let's move to building a scalable paid social powerhouse, which of course you have built. So you have managed more than 150 million in ad spend and generated over 200 millions in revenue for clients. Now, what's the
600 million in revenue for clients?
Okay.
150 million in ad spend, 200 million generated revenue doesn't sound great, but we've generated at least a 4x return on ad spend. So just wanted to
okay. All right.
Otherwise, please carry on.
Yeah. So what's the number one mindset shift marketers need to succeed with paid social today?
I think you need an extra layer of leverage. So paying to put ads in front of people on social is a form of leverage. You're not just posting something organically, you're then putting budget behind it to make sure that it's put in front of other people. But the most successful campaigns that we run for businesses, they have an extra layer of leverage. So a classic example of that would be influencers. We are running a lot of ad campaigns now with influencer created content, sometimes images, mostly videos. So if you take a standard e-commerce business that's advertising their products, they might be able to get profitable results. It might work well, but if they want to be able to take that into something that is unbelievably scalable and incredibly successful, get an influencer, a proper influencer, a big hitter within their space that has a real audience to create video ads showing their product, why it's great. When we run those, they're so much better at stopping the scroll. We can see that in the hook rate goes through the roof. That makes it much more likely people to consume the content, makes it much more likely people click and then purchase. So we've had many examples of clients, I've talked about this in some of my videos, where we will take a business that's operating at, say, a 3x return on ad spend, and then we get them to an 8x return on ad spend using influencer-based video ads. So just an enormous amount of leverage there. There are other ways to add in extra leverage into your content beyond just paying. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they're like, right, well, I'm paying to put this in front of people, therefore people will take action, and not thinking that you still need whatever you're putting in front of people to be as convincing as possible, as engaging as possible. So another layer of leverage, and this works particularly well for local businesses, might be an offer. So an offer that just absolutely blows your competition out the water.
Right.
Not only does that resonate with the people that see it, but when you're running that locally, they are far more likely to recommend it to friends, family, other people they know in the area as well. So you're getting that like second order of leverage on what you're doing. So I think that's the single most important thing when it comes to approaching paid social. There's lots of other things. Platforms have changed. We're having to embrace a lot more of what Meta, and this applies to all social platforms, but what Meta will want to do from a targeting and delivery standpoint and focusing on what we can really focus on. But that's the most important thing.
Okay. Now, you've said most Facebook ad campaigns fail, and that's normal. Now, how do you coach clients and your team to persist through these failures?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is expectation setting in the beginning, saying, look, a lot of this isn't going to work, but we're prepared for that in advance. So we're not just going to test the one ad. We're going to test lots of ads, lots of different hooks for those ads, lots of headline variations, different offers. We're going to test featuring different products within a product range or different services first. And we're going to test a lot of stuff to find the stuff that works. The reason why it happens is because any paid social environment is a competitive landscape. And in order to get fantastic results, you need to beat your competition. It's kind of like if you think about entering a tennis tournament. If there's 100 people in the tournament, there's going to be one winner and 99 losers. Now, if you translate that into Facebook ads, the people that come second, third, fourth, fifth, they've probably got great results as well. It's not just one person's going to get great results and 99 people are going to be unprofitable. But it's just to help understand that those are the market dynamics. There's going to be a relatively small percentage of campaigns that do really, really well in any space, and you want to have one of those. The good thing is, and this really helps with experience, and this is why expectation setting is so important, we could test 49 ads and them all fail and all lose money. And then the 50th ad does really well, generates a 12x return on ad spend. We scale that thing and it covers the cost of the 49 failed ads 10 times over. So that's the structure here. That's what we're looking to do. We are looking for those gems, for those things that can absolutely crush it when it comes to results, and that can more than make up for everything else. So you almost need to know what you're getting into going into it. You need to look at this more mathematically in terms of it might feel bad to have lots of ads not work, but that just doesn't matter. We're learning, we're adjusting, we find those ones that work, and it can all more than compensate. You can grow a fantastic business off 5% hit rate with your ads. Now, we're able to achieve better than that most of the time because we do this all the time. We've worked with 3,000 plus clients. We spent hundreds of millions on the platform, right? So we can expedite that process. But that's just how it works.
All right. Now, so what are the most common mistakes you see brands making with Facebook and Google ads right now?
I think a lot of brands aren't brave enough. And there's two ways that I'd say they're not brave enough. They're not brave enough with their messaging and their creative. So they're not brave enough with what they're putting in front of people. And what I mean by that is they're trying to restrict the personality of the brand. They're trying to make it corporate, make it sterile, boring. These things don't work. They just get scrolled past. So that's a battle that we're very often having with brands. It's like, if you're just willing to take a few risks here, this is not going to do any long-term damage. We think we can get much better results. Now, of course, there are cases where businesses have gone too far, and then there've been famous ones in the news recently where marketing people have been involved, and like the Jaguar rebrand, for example, and maybe the business owners and the board were talked into being a little bit too far with the direction and personality they wanted to express with that brand. But the vast majority of businesses sit on the other side of things where they're not brave enough. Then the other thing that I think businesses aren't brave enough is they require too good results to be able to scale properly. So I've had many conversations with businesses where we will always establish, what's the average customer worth to your business? And they'll say, okay, our average customer is worth $1,000 over a 5-year period, as an example. And we'll say, okay, what are you willing to pay to acquire that customer? And they might say $50, something like that. And we think, you're really only willing to pay 5% of what that customer's worth to acquire that customer. What if we were able to pay 20% of what that customer's worth to acquire that customer? So instead of paying $50 in terms of new customer acquired, we're paying $200 in terms of new customer acquired. And they sort of go, well, I'm not sure about that. You go, right, okay, but let me run you through this. If we're able to pay that much more to acquire a customer, we might be able to spend on ads and still be within that KPI 10, 20 times as much on ads, which means you will acquire 7, 8 times as many customers. Yes, you might be making slightly less profit on each customer, but think about what that will do for your business over the next 2 to 3 years. All those customers acquired, all those people using your products, using your services, telling friends and family. Nothing builds brand. I tell this to a lot of business owners. Nothing builds brand awareness better than selling your stuff to people. A lot of people want to run like awareness campaigns and build brand awareness that way. And like the best way is just to sell a ton of your product and have people using it, wearing it, other people seeing it, use your service, talk about it. That's the best way to build brand awareness. They're very much aligned there. So yeah, so I think there's a really good case for a lot of businesses to be much more aggressive in terms of customer acquisition, be willing to sacrifice that profit on the front end to build a much larger customer base. And once you've got that customer base, you can remarket to those people, get them to purchase again and again, and that's going to be incredibly profitable because you haven't got that cost of customer acquisition again. And the businesses that understand this best really are the venture-backed, often software businesses that come out of the US, because not only are they willing to not make a lot of profit on their initial customer acquisition, they're willing to lose a load of money on their initial customer acquisition. We've worked with some businesses in that space, and it's so different to other types of businesses where you're like, wow, you're willing to acquire a customer that pays you $10 a month in a subscription fee, and you're willing to pay $80 to acquire that customer. For most businesses, that would be insane. Now, they can do it because they have the external funding, but what they understand is they're going, aha, no, the goal here is we get to 500,000 customers and everything looks brilliant from then on because everything's much easier, efficiencies, we can do all sorts, we can upsell, we can lifetime value these people, etc., etc. We'll get a lot more referrals and that sort of thing. So they understand that the best, and I think more of that could be brought to other types of businesses, but it requires bravery.
Right, I agree with that. Now, in your view, what separates a good ad from a great ad?
It's all in the data. So I think a lot of business owners, in particular, when they're running their ads, they will assign how good an ad is, A, based on how much time and effort they put into it. So if they put a lot of time and effort into it, they think it's a great ad, whether it is or not. Yeah. And then B, just how it sort of looks visually. And for me, a great ad is one that produces a better return on ad spend than a good ad. We can just quite simply see that in the data. You do have to match that with making sure the ad doesn't hurt the brand, it doesn't contradict other things that you're putting out into the world elsewhere. But as long as you don't do that, it's all in the data, and it's as simple as that for me.
Okay, now how do you approach testing and optimization without drowning in data or chasing vanity metrics?
So the not chasing vanity metrics is a big one. And I think I've spoken to quite a few of our clients that are almost disappointed at the lack of data that we track and optimize around. I think they feel that we should be trying to optimize 15 different data points. And no. The most important thing for a business when you're running paid social is either going to be your return on ad spend, if you can track it accurately, or your cost per conversion. Let's say it's a lead-based business and you can't track what the individual customers are worth very easily. So we're going to go on cost per conversion. It's one of those two metrics. And 90% of the decisions around optimization should be made on which one of these two ads produce the better return on ad spend or the better cost per conversion. And really always bring it back to that. Now, the other metrics are useful for diagnosing problems or how you might improve things. So if you've got two different ads, one's produced a much better return on ad spend, that's your winner. But you can have a look at the other one and think, well, why didn't this work as well? So that's when you might look at things like your hook rate. What percentage of people actually watch those first 3 seconds of the video? Okay, this is quite low. Right. So maybe we don't need to throw this whole ad out. Maybe we just need to record some new hooks for it. And there are other metrics like that. Did this ad not produce as well because the click-through rate was low? Okay, maybe we need a stronger call to action in this ad because the click-through rate's lower, and we can look to improve that. So you can use those to diagnose and potentially improve, but in terms of optimization decisions, bring it back to those. It sounds overly simplistic, and like I said, some clients have been a bit disappointed at that, but that's what matters for most businesses far more than anything else.
Okay. Now, how do you approach creative testing today versus 3 years ago?
Okay, so today we're more video heavy. So I've polled my audience recently, and our own internal data supports this, that video ads produce the best results on Facebook and Instagram about 60% of the time. Now, that's still 40% of the time where you're going to be looking at images, carousels, and it's worth testing for your specific business. But we are now more video heavy. I think when I ran that exact same poll 2 years ago, it was something like 45% of the time video ads produced the best. And 2 years before that would have been like 30%, I would expect. So we're definitely more video heavy now. I think within that, we have a number of go-to styles that we're going to test video-wise. That's a lot of businesses fall into the trap of, oh, I tested video ads, it didn't work. Okay, well, how good were those video ads? How many did you actually create? What was the style? Maybe you just created the wrong style of video ad. So we will have a number of go-tos. I'll quickly run through them. So UGC video ads, user-generated content. Influencer video ads, different things. A lot of people conflate those two. User-generated is previous customers, regular people, influencers have audience, have influencers. Founder-led video ads, very self-explanatory. Demonstration video ads can be great for, particularly if you develop something new. Slideshow style video ads, if you're promoting an image-based advertiser, you can put your images into a slideshow, animate, make it a lot more engaging, and then full animation, sort of cartoon graphic style video ads. Now there are other types, but those are like the typical ones that we're gonna look to test very often for different clients. And so we're gonna be more video heavy. We often know which one of those or which two of those is likely to produce the best results for a client, again, based on our experience. But if you don't have that, you don't know for your particular business, try and test. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take money, it's gonna take resources. But again, if you find that 1 in 100 ad, that 1 in 200 ad that just absolutely flies, that could completely change your entire business. I've seen it many times. Businesses have 5x'd in a year of one ad that's done really, really well. And it's massively profitable, and you can spend as much as possible and really grow a business, provided you can keep up from a capacity standpoint. So that's a big part of it. We're doing more creative testing and less testing elsewhere. So 3 years ago, we would have done more audience testing, we would have done more copy-based testing, even other things, and just anyone who is involved in any sort of like data work that is familiar with testing knows you can't test too much at once. There's only so much you can test, otherwise you overload what Meta's able to test. And you as the advertiser, it's really hard, unless you're a fully qualified data scientist, it's really hard to work out what's going on here, we changed this and this at the same time, which one produced the improvement in results. So because we're testing less elsewhere, from a targeting standpoint, we're trusting the platforms more to work that out. That would apply to Google as well. That gives us more flexibility to then test on the creative. So we're going to, depending on the type of business, but we're always going to have multiple creatives running. We're going to always have creatives in the wings ready to go, so that once we've run an experiment, we go, okay, out of these 6 ads that we're running, 2 are winners, 4 aren't, turn the 4 off, boom, let's put the new ones in and go. And then the final thing I'd say on that is probably within the video world, we're going to be much more hook focused. Now, this is not something I think we did 3 years ago, where we would, let's say we wanted to test different video ads, we might record 4 video ads and test them.
Right.
Now we will record 4 video ads, but we might record 20 different hooks. So those, by the hook, I mean those first 3 seconds,
Right.
so that each one has 5 variations, 5 different hooks. Because that's the most important part by far of the video ad. That could be make or break. And you can see the exact same video could be a 90-second long video, but if the first 3 seconds are different, it could have a completely different results from a return on ad spend standpoint. So we will also do that now, and we will create a lot more hooks, a lot more variations. And that's something I don't think we were doing, but is hugely important to what we do now.
Is it something you are following on your YouTube channel, the hooks thing? Are you testing there as well?
No, I'm not actually. Okay, so I am not to that same extent. And this is one of the beautiful things about ads that you can't touch with organic content, is with organic content, because you aren't in control of the distribution, if you try and upload the same bit of content but with different hooks, the second, third, fourth, etc. version you upload is not going to do as well, because a proportion of your audience have already seen it and they go, oh, I'm not going to watch that again, I've already watched it, right? So, whereas with ads you control the distribution, so you just don't have that to worry about. It's a non-factor. So I test different hooks, as in I will see what works best from a retention standpoint on YouTube and the other social content. Like I do the same thing if I'm creating Instagram Reels, for example. I'll take a look at the retention and see what performs best. But it's more I'm learning from video to video
That's
as
right.
opposed to
Right.
with ads. Yeah, especially with ads, we'll take that same video and do
Yeah.
a bunch of testing with the hooks.
Right. Now, for agencies managing multiple clients like yours, how do you keep creative output constantly high?
Yeah, so we have dedicated creative professionals, and that's really important. So we have people in-house, and we also have overflow freelancers, which I think is quite important. So as we've grown, we have our main people in-house, but if we have, because with creative requirements, we know that there are natural spikes. So many of our clients are going to want Black Friday campaigns. So we know there's going to be, in the weeks running up to Black Friday, there's going to be more creative demand than there is at the other time of the year. So we can't have enough creative full-time staff to cover the Black Friday period because some of them are going to be twiddling their thumbs during the rest of the year. So we'll have overflow capacity, whether it's freelancers. We've actually worked with, like partnered with other agencies that just do creative to help during those times as well. So I think that's really important. But I think one of the mistakes I made early on was that we had media buyers handling both. So we had media buyers that would handle account management, all of it, ad copy writing, creative production, and client communication. And I think right at the beginning, that's probably how you have to go when it's like your first or second media buyer, because you're thinking, well, I can't hire people for those roles. But now we very much break up those roles. So the client communicator and the person doing the account management will most of the time be different. Some people have skill sets where they can do both, so they'll dip in and out. But most of the time will be different to who handles the creative, and then that will also be different to the copywriter. So each new client now will have effectively a team put on there where they might have a senior media buyer, a junior media buyer who's learning and helping do like simple tasks, a creative professional, whether that's someone just doing post-production. So we might take video assets from a client, for example, edit them up, and then a copywriter. Now it won't be like 4 full-time people to each individual client. Obviously that's fractional across clients, depending on the size, and the number at which they can handle is different. So a copywriter can handle a lot more clients than a video editor, for example, because it's much less time consuming. So like the structure becomes a little bit complicated. But in our work, as we've grown and we've made connections in the industry and talked with other like agencies, the bigger you get, the larger clients you work with, they normally end up with something like that, more of a pod system as opposed to like just the flat, everyone does a bit of everything who's working on client work.
Right. That is true. I mean, true for our agency as well. I mean, I used to hire SEO who used to manage client, but then I understand it has to differentiate. I agree.
Exactly.
Now, yeah, I think you learn. I mean, just when you start, you are like CEO is chief of everything officer. So you tend to pass those responsibility and think this guy will do the exact same. And that's where the mistake happens.
100%. And most people who build a successful agency, they're at least competent in about 12 different things because they've had to be, otherwise they wouldn't have built a successful agency.
Yes.
And you assume other people are going to be the same, and that is very rarely. Every now and then you'll find an absolute gem who is like that, but that is very rarely the case.
That's a wishful thinking. So now I assume people don't, because even in SEO, the standards which we have and we hire the people, they don't match. So now, as you said, if for me, we are in a city which has people, but I still prefer to hire freshers. They are easy to train, mold in our process. The experienced ones come with their own baggage.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can often be easier to train someone on your way of doing things as opposed to get them to unlearn something that they've learned previously.
Right.
I do think that when you switch that system as well of realizing not everyone can do everything, that there is a big upside to that, in that we have people on our team that are better than me at every single one of those individual things, like better account managers, because that's all they do. They just manage accounts. That are better creative professionals, because that's all they do. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur and you're someone that does a bit of everything, you don't achieve mastery in any of those one things. So whilst it seems like an extra cost and people can't, exactly, and it seems like people can't do as much as you can at the beginning, yes, but they can achieve levels of expertise that can go much deeper over time, and there's big upside to that.
Absolutely. Now, with the rising ad cost and platform changes, where are the biggest opportunities for agencies and brands in 2025 or further ahead?
I think probably what we're seeing across the board, and this is definitely something that we're doing with our agency, and I almost think we need a better way of sort of charging for this, for monetizing this, is we've become marketing agency / business coach in a lot of scenarios. And I think this is very much related to rising ad costs. So as ad costs go up, your initial customer acquisition is going to go up. You can either decide to not advertise, but I mean, if that's one of the core ways you generate business, that's not going to work out well in the long run. The other option is going to be make more money from your customers, which is often the best advice and typically what we advise. So very often now we will be running ad campaigns for clients. We've had many clients we've worked for many years, and we might have a very honest conversation with them where we say, that campaign that was producing amazing results for you 2 years ago, it's now costing 30% more cost per purchase to acquire those customers. Now, actually, the inflation in ad costs has been more than 30%. So we're net up, but it still happened. Your prices haven't risen. You need to raise your prices to compensate for this. Or you've only got a repeat purchase rate of 0.4%, 0.4. Only 40% of people are buying again once more time on average. We need to get your average purchase rate up to a 2.7. And if we do that, you never need to worry about rising ad costs, or you don't need to unless they double, which is probably going to take the best part of a decade. So we're having to go more and more into the other parts of the business, thinking about it strategically from a pricing, from a customer reactivation standpoint. And honestly, we've had conversations with quite a few businesses where, let's say this is a semi-common scenario. They've run their own ads. They've worked with an agency for many years. Things used to work really well 5 years ago, and they've just slowly gotten worse and worse and worse. And they've never changed anything, and they just refuse to change anything. They don't have any repeat customers. They don't have anything like that. We're saying, and we've had a lot of conversations, say your business needs a rethink more than a new marketing strategy. They think it's just, we just need to find a new audience, or we just need a new ad. And that might help, but to future-proof yourself from rising ad costs, you need to make a fundamental shift. So I'll give an extreme example, but I think it helps demonstrate this point really well. Mm-hmm. So Starbucks average order value is $5.65. So if someone goes to Starbucks, they get coffee, maybe a bit of food, $5.65 on average. But the lifetime value of a Starbucks customer is over $14,000. So if you're analyzing your metrics as a business and you're thinking, we make $5.65 per customer, how much can we afford to pay an advertising cost to acquire that customer? I mean, $1.50, maybe not even that. But if you rethink that and you go, okay, how much can we afford to pay to acquire a $14,000 customer? At least 100 times more than that, at least. Now, you have to be good enough to get those repeat purchases. But Starbucks is so good at generating that lifetime customer value, they would never have to worry about the cost of customer acquisition. So that's an extreme example, but there are many businesses where their lifetime value is $150 and they could easily get that to $400 with a few tweaks, a few improvements in things, some better remarketing, email marketing, SMS, to get them over the line. And then they just don't need to worry about acquisition costs because it's so far within their KPI that they're fine.
Right. Now we're just coming towards the end. I've taken more than an hour. The time really flew with you.
Yeah, good. That's always good.
Yes. So the lesson in leadership, team, and vision. Now you have grown to a 60+% team now. What was your biggest cultural shift move?
Oh, the biggest cultural shift was from fully remote to not. So when I first started, a business was fully remote. We didn't have an office, and that was the case until about 5 years ago. So many years we were fully remote, and it's interesting. We did that before that became much more common. So we were doing that in 2018, like before COVID, and that became much more usual. And we decided we still have some remote roles, and these are basically people that started working with us back then, who are still working with us, that live in an other side of the country, unrealistic for them to relocate. But they've always been brilliant, so we're happy for them to keep working in those conditions. But we made a conscious shift of like new people for the vast majority of roles are going to be at least hybrid. They're going to be in the office. And we found that, well, I found, this is before I had my business partner working with me, that managing a fully remote team of 5 people, absolutely fine. Managing a fully remote team of 15 people, complete nightmare. No way near enough easy communication to let people know about the extra things. Everything was a Zoom call. It's just so onerous to get people to know about stuff. You'd find people didn't know. So that was a huge shift, and it's absolutely been a good one. I think if the climate was different, I'd quite like to go fully in the office full time with our stuff, and we might look to do that at some point. Even being hybrid, so we do 3 days in the office, 2 days at home for most people. Even being hybrid, there's too many times where I hear people say, "Oh, we're back in on Friday. Let's run through it then." And I think, no. This is a work day right now. Like, I'll see that in a Slack channel, something like that, and I'm like, the not being together is creating a barrier in communication. That's meaning you guys aren't going to deal with this on a Wednesday. You're going to wait till Friday. Like, so that's not good. So I quite like the idea of going fully in the office. I totally get their advantages to having some remote work and being flexible, but that was the big culture shift. And I think more and more businesses have realized that. They've realized that there are many great remote staff, but there are also a lot of remote staff that, like, let's be honest, they're going to watch Netflix and, wake up late and do all sorts.
Yes.
Right? So
It's so much like me when we had COVID and everybody went remote. A lot of people moved different part of the cities. Now almost 40% of my team is remote, but again, I said no more remote. I can't have, there is no synergy. It's more like a tick box. So you are doing things, but I can't do, and things changes so fast in our industry. I need people. It's like all hands on the deck. You can't have those hands sitting at home.
I think things slip through the net as well. It's much easier when someone's remote for you to think they know about the big new change or the update or a new way of doing something, and you don't realize for a couple of months, and you're like, oh, they're still doing it that way. We've completely changed. Whereas if someone's in the office with you, they're like down the corridor, it's so much easier just to be like, or even in that scenario, right, everyone come in a sec. Let me just let you know how everything's going. So yeah, and also, you can work with someone remotely for years and never develop like much of a personal connection.
That is true.
But if you work with someone face to face, even for a few months, that's way more likely. And I think that's something that we all would benefit from more in our work. And I certainly want that.
Now, how do you mentor or train media buyers inside Heath Media?
So we have some educational material. I think that's one of the side benefits that comes from creating a lot of content. And we have like a school community where there's content inside of that we make available to the public if they join, along with like other live elements and things like that. So we start pure and simple with education. You're going to go through my stuff. You're going to learn how we do things, and I think it's also helpful to keep like content honest, because I'm always going to want to provide the best information and help people as much as possible, because I know my guys are going to be trained on this stuff, so like it better be good, right? Not just, oh, I want to do that anyway, but it's just an extra like a reason to do that. And then from there, we get them to work with a senior media buyer on client accounts, and they can see exactly what's going on. They literally sit side by side or work very closely with them, and they see this is how we're doing what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and they sort of learn then through osmosis, through seeing what's happening. And then once they've got a bit more experience, then they're going to go on to doing some of the more basic things. So senior media buyer might have made a decision, right, we've recorded these bits of content. I need you to work with the creative on this team to chop up all the hooks, pair them with the different video content, get that uploaded into this type of campaign with this structure. And then the senior media buyer oversees them sort of doing that work. So it's a very gradual process. We've got some clients that we're spending $2 million a month on ads. Like, we can't have them mess up, especially with those really high spenders. Like a junior media buyer is basically never going to get access to be able to do that. It have to be someone more senior. But even if let's say that they're working with a client that's in our typical range. Let's say they're spending $20,000 a month, then they're going to slowly warm up to being able to do things. We need to make sure that they're not going to make mistakes.
Okay. Now, what's your North Star now? Exiting, acquiring, or becoming a SaaS?
My plan is to build the biggest agency I can. I would like to become a British version of a Gary Vaynerchuk from a personal brand standpoint, and that allow us to build our own version of Media. I mean, literally Heath Media, right? There's a lot of similarities in the name. That's what I want to do. I'm 32. I have no desire to retire anytime soon. I think I've achieved a lot. Me and my team have achieved a lot in a short time period. There's loads more to grow. What we've done so far has worked really well. We're growing all the time. Even in the last 12 months, we've grown revenue more than double in the last 12 months from a really good place. So there's a lot more growth to be had. So yeah, once I get to anything close to those levels, someone wants to put a big offer on the table, then maybe that's something that I would look at. But for now, I'm very happy to do that. I don't want to go into software. I know a lot of people in the space do. I don't think that's not me. That's not my personality. I don't have much to bring to the table in that. I want to keep doing what we're doing, but do it more, do it bigger, work with biggest companies in the world. I think that'd be really exciting.
Okay. With this, we come to the last section of our show, which is rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer what comes first in your mind. All right,
Sure,
here we go. One business book you keep rereading.
Alex Hormozzi's $100 Million Offers.
Okay. If not marketing, what would you be doing?
Probably selling something relatively expensive. I think I'm a natural marketer. I'm a natural salesperson. So I would lean into that, and it would be, yeah, as a salesman or in that type of capacity, selling hopefully something very expensive with large commissions.
Okay. Craziest client request you ever received?
We had a client who was quite wacky, and he wanted to come up with different hooks for his video ads, and he was like a personal brand, and he wanted to do a series of hooks of him in the bath. And we said, oh, we think that's maybe a little bit too far. Right. I love introducing personality, but you sat in the bath with a load of bubbles. For this type of business, I'm not sure that was quite the right one. There might be others that are more crazy than that, but that's just one that cracks me up and comes to mind.
What's one tool or resource you can't live without?
Now I'd say ChatGPT. Honestly, that's probably a fairly standard answer for a lot of people, but video ideation, any script writing, all my email marketing is at least firstly written by ChatGPT, and then I have a go at it. So yeah.
A podcaster or a YouTube creator you admire?
I think what I've already mentioned it, but I think what Alex Hormozzi has done with his YouTube channel, with his organic content, is incredible. And I think for me, what's so exciting about what he's done is he's made business stuff that otherwise people mostly seem as really boring, very popular to a wide audience. I don't think that quite, even though obviously other people that operate in the space quite been done before. I want to give a quick second answer to that. Rory Sutherland, because he's the first person I could think of that has gone from nowhere to massive fame relatively quickly as a marketer, not even as a business person, but specifically as a marketer. And I love his takes on things. So that'd be another name that comes to mind.
Okay. What's your 30-second advice to the 24-year-old marketer stuck, underpaid in a 9-to-5 job?
Okay. If you commit to doing something about that and you work at it every day and you take time to stop and think about how to get from where you are to where you want to be, eventually you will get there if you don't give up. It's as simple as that. It's not easy to do, but it's as simple as that.
Ben, this was an absolute masterclass in everything, including personal branding, and I love the paid social ads as well. Now, of course, and from brutal early lessons to becoming a YouTube-led client magnet. Thank you for sharing so openly everything about you and your agency and the processes. I really appreciate that. For our listeners, go follow Ben on YouTube if you want real battle-tested digital marketing advices, especially when it comes to Google and Meta ads. And this is the Agency Insider Show, and I'm your host, BenHeath Kaushal. Until next time, keep building smarter. And Ben, thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great to chat, and hopefully that was useful for people.
Yeah, I'm just going to end the recording.